All Sails Set, Chapter 9, The Pacific Slant, Whales, I Remember a Vow. Sail ho! The call from the lookout had an electrifying effect, the first sign of human life that the flying cloud had raised in 54 days. We rushed to the bulwarks, sprang into the ratlines, swarmed aloft, each one of us eager to be the first to see the ship. There she is! Larboard quarter! A brig riding solidly on the long glassy swells. Signals were exchanged, and we found that she was the Catawba out of Nantucket, Captain Obed Swain, master. A whale ship, but sturdy. But the sturdy cut of her had already decided that, even before signal and spyglass settled the point. For several days, we had seen sperm whales moving rapidly, always to windward, now and then a finback and several right whales. And wherever the whales are, there will you find the New England whaler going about his dangerous job in the most matter-of-fact manner possible. The wind had fallen to a dead calm. It was one of those immaculately clear days at sea, without a cloud in the sky or hint of mist in the air, and as we drifted towards the Catawba, we could see the men perched in her rigging and hear their voices in eager debate about the flying cloud. The old man ordered a boat lowered. He meant to be rowed over to the whale ship to pass an hour or two with her commander, and I counted myself lucky when Mr. Andrews gave me the word to swing down to one of the oars and bend my back with Delaney and Olson and Caleb Winthrop. The old man sat in the stern sheets, and despite his expressionless face, we knew that he was as anxious as we to exchange news and break the monotony of days with this diversion. We rowed up under the counter of the Catawba, made fast, then swarmed up on the deck where Captain Swain stood waiting to greet our commander. The two men went below to the cabin to yarn. That means, to talk. While the rest of us were surrounded by members of the whale ship's crew, who plied us for tobacco and asked all manner of questions. They had never laid eyes on a clipper of the flying cloud's magnitude, and they wanted to know all about her from A to Z. A sudden cry from the lookout at the masthead threw the ship into turmoil and brought an end to their curiosity. "Thar she blows! Blows!" sounded the cry. The door of the companionway banged open before Captain Swain, followed by the old man. The commander of the Catawba hurled orders at his mates. The mates hooked curses to the orders and flung them at the men. "Ah, blows! Blows!" Looking upward, I saw atop the mainmast of the whaler a curious contrivance, the like of which appears on no other type of ship. A small platform surmounted by two iron hoops fastened to the mast at the height of a man's stomach. Here the lookout must stand through the weary hours of his watch. "Where away?" shouted the captain. "2 points off the lee bow. Blows sperm whales." Of one accord we rushed to the bulwarks. Not a quarter mile off we saw a sudden heaving to the surface of a glistening black bulk, and a jet of vapor thrown high into the air. The mate was training his spyglass on the scene. "Blows about a quarter mile off, sir, and coming," he announced, "and coming to windward." "Call all hands," shouted the captain. Back your main yard. Get your boats ready, mister." At the first cry from the lookout, the crew had stripped off their shirts and shoes and taken a double reef in their belts as they prepared for the work at hand. The crews of whale ships have come in for so much blackguarding that here I would like to discredit a current belief concerning them, so far as lies within my power. It is a fact and true that whalemen were a rougher lot than the men encountered in the merchant service. There is no gainsaying that ashore their conduct was ofttimes lamentable, and such as to cast a dark light of public disfavor upon them. But within their own realm, the sea, I wish here to state that no finer body of men ever lived or breathed. Strong, courageous, fearless, ready to face any personal hazard in pursuit of their profession. They were men of iron will and stout heart, and taken by and large, a credit to the sea they followed. However imperfectly disciplined they may be, a system of order prevailed on the Catawba, as on all ships of the whaling type, and in 2 shakes of a rope yarn, the confusion on deck had straightened itself out. The men stood poised and ready to swing themselves over the side and into a lowered whaleboat. The captain indicated the boat he wished to attack the whale. The boat header and the harpooner took their stations in bow and stern, while it was yet hanging in the davits. "Clear away that larboard boat," shouted Captain Swain. "Here, Chips, lend a hand with them davy tackles. Ready? Hoist and swing." The davit tackles were run out by men on deck, and the boat dropped to the water with a smart splash, while the oarsmen swung over the ship's rail and tumbled into their positions, almost by the time the whaleboat had slapped the water. Each man knew his proper place. In spite of the appearance of a mad scramble, there was no confusion. For more than 2 centuries, a manner of killing whales has been preserved intact. The method of boarding a whale, the instruments to be used, the position of the boats, and the number of men in them, all are dictated by long precedent and never varied. A tradition has been established. The mate in the stern sheets barked at his men. "Out oars! Pull ahead! Clear of the ship, now, that's well!" From the poop, the captain shouted, "Cut in ahead of the whale if you can, mister." "Come on, byes! Bend your backs," the mate bellowed. "That fellow's got 100 barrels of ile under his ribs if he's got a gill." Clinging to the ratlines of the Catawba, we could see the whaleboat dancing over the waves towards its quarry. We could see the glistening black hull of the whale, as long as the Catawba itself, lying on the surface, feeding perhaps on and unconscious of its approaching enemy. A column of vapor rose from the blowholes, like the escape of steam from a valve, 12 or 15 feet into the air. We saw the harpooner poised and erect, with his thigh braced in the clumsy cleat, his arms balancing the harpoon in readiness. "Steady," we heard him call. "Coming to wind'ard. Sir, starboard. Your hellum, you're gettin' on his eye." I remembered Messina Clark telling me that a sperm whale's eyes are placed so that it commands a wide oblique vision, thus rendering it able to guard against attack from either side. But the vulnerability of the monster lies in the fact that it cannot see an object that is directly fore, that means in front, and aft, which is behind. Consequently, getting on his eye meant entering the whale's line of vision. The stillness of the scene was disturbed only by the clucking of the restless ripples as they washed against the sides of the Catawba, and the gurgling of the riptides as they played about her forefoot. We were taut with suspense. Now we could see the whale more plainly, see the bunch of the neck and the hump as they rose on the long swells, while the enormous flukes churned the water to a foam. One of the crew of the whaler gave me his spyglass, for which I was deeply grateful. "Here, lad," he offered. "This ain't nothing new to me. Cast your eye along this glass now and see what you can see." Many times magnified within the circle of the glass, I could see water foaming over the dark head of the whale, exposing now and again the long, cruel jaw. The junk was scarred and seamed, testimony to many a fierce battle for supremacy with its own species, or perhaps with the giant octopus, its natural food and enemy. The mate of the whaleboats was laying a course head-on to the whale. "Now by," we heard him call. "Up and at him. Don't miss your chance." But already the harpooner had driven his blow. The weapon was buried to the hilt, just aft of the back fin. The water was lashed to sudden fury by a sweep of the flukes. "Stern all!" yelled the mate, and the boat was instantly oared backward to clear the whale. "Are you fast by?" "Got one iron in, sir. Don't know about the other." The line leaped from the tub and went spinning around the loggerhead, through the chocks, a puff of smoke issuing forth from the friction. The whale had sounded, and there was naught to it but wait for the rising. 20 minutes passed, but still the line was slowly running out of the tub or taut. Another quarter of an hour, interminable, it seemed to us watching, breathless from the deck of the whale ship. Through my glass, I could see the mate peering over the gunwale. Then his voice shouted, "He's a-comin'! Haul line!" Frantically now, the men were hauling in the line and coiling it loosely on the platform. "Coil that line clear, lads!" The mate barked. "Look out! Stern all! Here he comes!" But the warning was too late. The whale, out of breath, rose with a blow and a puff. Water rushed off his back like the decks of a frigate clearing itself for action. The bunch of the monster's neck caught the keel of the boat and lifted it full out of the water. It slewed off to larboard, spilling the men out on the whale's back, whence they slid off into the sea. The whale, enraged by all this business, swept his flukes, and in the sweep caught the heavy whaleboat and flung it high into the air as easily as a child might toss a ball. As it descended, a mighty side swipe from the caudal smashed it to smithereens and left splinters bobbing on the waves with the heads of the crew, who fully expected at any moment to meet their end in the whale's jaws. But the whale had had enough. With loops of line hanging in festoons from his teeth, he started off toward the horizon in a wake of boiling foam. The captain ordered a boat out to pick up the crew, who were treading water and supporting themselves by oars and bits of splintered planking. The mate was counting heads, and soon all were present and accounted for. By this time the breeze had freshened, and Captain Creasy gave the order to return to the Flying Cloud. After delivering several letters and messages to the commander of the Catawba, that night in the forecastle of the Cloud, conversation revolved about naught but whaling. Even the prospect of approaching land was, for the moment, shouldered aside. Tom Plunkett snorted at the exhibition of whaling skill we had witnessed that day, and regaled us with tales of the days when whale fishing was something. Many hair-raising experiences he claimed to have had. All on a sudden, he mused, like a bolt o' lightning, the jaws of that whale, with 2 rows of shiny teeth, shot out of the water. Next, the whole ruddy whale itself leapt clear into the air, carrying with him the stem of the boat. And there was Zeb, Pound, hanging from one corner of the whale's mouth like a blinking sardine. Aye, sometimes now of nights I wake up seeing that poor sailor's face. Not to be outdone, Caleb Winthrop contributed his bit, hamstringing a whale with a boat spade. It takes a proper man to fight under the flukes of a whale, he declared with becoming modesty, while his eyes sparkled with recollection of youthful daring. As you lads know, a whale ain't rigged like an ordinary fish, with his flukes set fore and aft. Nope. They's set athwartships, just like on a porpoise or a dolphin. When they wants to take a header, they got to get a purchase with the flat of their caudal, then throw it high in the air to make their dive. Then's your chance. You stands up in the bows, and you swings your spade with all your might, right into the tendons that connect up the flukes with the body. That's the wind up, oh Mr. Whale. Like a ship without a rudder he is, and proper hamstrung. Small wonder, I thought, that tales of spading flukes live on in the memory of old whalers, that are rendered even today the homage that goes with a stout heart and nerves of iron. The Flying Cloud was laying knots behind her on the last lap of her voyage. From 50 degrees South Atlantic, she had made the phenomenal run of 7 days to 50 degrees South Pacific. From that point, sweeping along in the heel of the trades, she crossed the equator again in 17 days. We were now 71 days out of New York, and with promise of a passage that would set a record for all time. Excitement aboard ship ran high, and speculation was furious. The men with 9/10 of their wages mortgaged to the slop chest for clothes and tobacco were betting the meager balance on her run. Every man aboard, save the mutineers who had been clapped back in the 'tween decks, and the first mate, still padlocked in his cabin, was bending his utmost of strength to speed the Cloud to her goal. There was no labor too great, no ordeal too long. As day by day brought us nearer to the California coast, we rallied against each slackening breeze that threatened to retard us, and blessed every sudden rising squall that sped us on. All the standing rigging was tarred down, decks sanded and holystoned. Spars and yards were scraped and varnished till they glistened like a shark's belly. Every scrap of bright work came in for its polishing. The paint locker was opened up for fresh supplies, and new halyards were rove. The Flying Cloud blossomed under all this attention, like a fine flower preening in the sun. Nothing short of the most unseasoned calms or unforeseen disaster could hold her back now. I swelled with an overwhelming pride in this. My ship, the ship I had watched from her very beginnings, had had an infinitesimal part in shaping and in sailing. I was filled with admiration for her record of doubling the Horn in the teeth of all but disastrous storm. I wanted to shout aloud my joy in having a part, however small, in this grand undertaking. No premonition did I have of the disaster about to overtake us. I had been sent below to the rope locker to fetch up a length of hemp. It was dark down there in the bowels of the ship, and silent save for ship sounds and the chuckling and lapping of water against the outer hull. There was only the thickness of a few planks between me and the sea. I laid my hand against the wood, and I could feel the sea outside, like the beat of a pulse, and I knew again that feeling which seldom left me, the aliveness of this ship of mine. Moisture stood out in beads on the curving bulkhead and dripped from the tunneled stanchion. Down here, the creakings and groanings of the ship came closer and were more real. As if you're trying to talk to me, Flying Cloud. What is it you want to say, old friend? That one of these bright days will raise land on your starboard bow? That you've made a record that will stand on history's pages as long as men's hearts quicken to find adventure? I know that. No, it's something else you're saying. There's no joy in these creaks of yours. Sort of ominous, somehow. What light there was, filtered down from above through the scattered cracks and crannies. Plague me, thought I, as I felt along the bulkhead for the door. Why hadn't I brought a lantern? Anyway, there would be a lamp in its gimbal in the rope locker, that I knew. The door swung suddenly to my touch. Leaving it thus open, I entered the locker. Lamp gimbals, where were they? My match sputtered and flickered in the close air. A sudden draft. The door banged behind me. Out went the match. Blast it, I muttered, fishing in vain through my pockets. The last one, of course. A low chuckle reached my ear. Who's there? I cried sharply. Again the chuckle, while a voice said, There'll be all the light you want in a minute, Thatcher. Sneed. I felt my blood draining. Right you are, me bucko. Jeter Sneed himself. The man laughed, aloud now. Mad laughter, horrible to hear. Thought I was chained up like a rat to the bulkhead, didn't you? I could lie here and rot, eh? There was light in the rope locker now. It took a second for the significance to penetrate. Light. A glow that touched the arching stanchions, stabbed by a sudden leaping flame. In that flash, the scene engraved itself on my retina. Jeter Sneed, wasted to skeleton bone, broken irons dangling from his arms. life only in his eyes and in the grope of his fingers. I could lie down here like a bloody foxhole rat, eh? He screamed. I sawed through tougher irons than these. I backed toward the door, fumbled for the latch, another burst of flame leaping. Sneed was edging toward me. I swore I'd square accounts with you, Thatcher. Get away from the door. Keep back, Sneed. I've whipped you before, and I can... The man was upon me. With a crash, we struck the floor. Over and over we rolled, chains clanking, bodies twisting, cries tearing our throats. Weak though Sneed was, there was death in the clutch of his fingers as they fought for a grip on my throat. The flames were mounting now. The heat was blasting. You're afire, Flying Cloud. You're... A blow from the irons, full in my face, hurled me backward into the flames. A scream tore the air. A man in mortal anguish. Could that voice be mine? Hair burning, flesh. A wave of nausea swept me as 1,000 knives stabbed at my body. You're afire, Flying Cloud. I pulled myself to my knees. Somewhere a man was laughing, gibbering like an idiot. Shadows leaped like marionettes. I tore the flaming shreds of my shirt from my flesh. Smoke was blinding me. I must see. Fire lighted the rope locker to sudden brilliance. A skeleton gibbering, twin points of light in its eye sockets, a point of light on its chin. Ha, Sneed, now all... My muscles did it of themselves. A point of light on the chin, every ounce of beef behind that blow. Bone against bone, knuckles cracking up. Sneed groaning on the floor. Silence. A fathom of hemp fitted itself to my fist. Fire can't touch you, Flying Cloud, not while I... My arms swung the rope with all the strength they could muster, beating back the flames. The smoke was so thick now, so thick, I couldn't see. Hard to breathe. Hello, Messina Clark? What are you doing here? One hand for the ship and one hand for myself, eh? Gore, that December wind has a bite to it. I can see the top of your head, Donald McKay, bent over your table, that drafting room of yours, and you, Flying Cloud, for you, my youth, my strength, my life, if need be. I must have been waking from a sleep, waking, then dozing off again. Voices reached me from a great distance, the mates saying, all snug below, sir. The lad, is he dead? The old man's voice answering, oughter be, but... I was in the dining saloon, I could see that. On the table, funny place to be. What was that? My arms? Couldn't be. I moved them. No, I wouldn't try that again. There came a rush of feet overhead. A wild shout, ringing clear. Land ho! Land ho! California! It's California, Flying Cloud! What are you crying for, you fool?